We started back in 2016, and we were founded as a charity and a nonprofit to create impact through social innovation. And we do that through a number of apparatus. But we started immediately working with former Mayor Sly James, and specifically around the Hire KC program, which you guys both know. And we really wanted to help him expand youth opportunity, democratize it, make it more visible, more accessible. The city really needs to course correct. How do we become a more equitable and prosperous city for all of its citizens? There's a lot that we can do to help construct and contribute to that level of social change. So how can we as an organization help influence that level of community and neighborhood transformation? We believe wholly that young people are the social innovators of our time, and so we really want to use that level of instrument, your voice, your leadership, to help with the transformation of our neighborhoods and our communities. What does it mean to have a seat at the table? How would you propose to participate to help us fuel the programs that we can create the most impact in our communities around, whether it's in class or online or with your friends? And we really want to understand how we can help you help us to make a better future for Kansas City.
Listening to the youth and the problems and the struggles that they are going through today, and trying to help them ideate and think through how to better implement solutions to solve those problems.
Creating space for their voices to be heard, and understand that people who are in positions of power can implement their ideas, and what they feel that's needed to be met can be implemented in other areas in their life that impact everybody.
Taking charge, leadership, being inspired, and just having energy and motivation to create change.
In my head, that sounds like youth-led activism, but I know it can also probably in the context of Hire KC means making sure that youth are in those places where they can have positive impact on the community.
So social impact fueled by youth mean to me social change. So whatever social issues is current at the time, and it's driven, the issue is addressed, it's handled, it's frontlined by all youth.
I guess I kind of thought of it as platforms to express yourself. I know a lot of social media is a big platform that the youth use to express their opinions, and granted they use it in a way that's good for the community, to impact social change. They express their own opinions, they promote activism, create awareness, or bring more awareness to issues that are dear to our hearts. So when I think of fueled by the youth, I think of social media and those type of platforms to fuel the youth.
It feels more empowering, and I think the youth feel more motivated when they're just listened to, and the people at the top are able to listen to them and offer feedback based off their experience and what's feasible to help the youth accomplish whatever it is that they're envisioning. Opportunity. I think it's an organization that really tries to help bring opportunity and equity to a lot of young people, especially people who don't have the best connections to put them in the best possible place for a good future. So I think KCSIC does that.
This is a little, I would say social. I would also say, when I hear that, I kind of think of the Plex Clyde, but that's by City Hall. Young people coming in, studying, opening up books to whatever issue. I see youth sitting down at coffee tables. Everybody got their laptop, they're hitting their different issues. So that's what I see.
I'd say innovative. I think that you guys have adapted to, you seem very a very adaptive organization, adapting and overcoming challenges and making sure that the people you serve also have those qualities instilled in them through their interactions with you.
well, it's in the name, innovation, like being innovative, creative in your pursuits of like creating opportunities for other people as well. I think that's really the one word that's kind of struck out to me because it creates space for change and being open to implementing those. Making sure that you're taken seriously. And I feel like personal biases can definitely go into that, so that's why people feel like the need to code switch in order to almost like adapt to their way of their perspective. My peers would understand where I'm coming from, but adults would, based on whatever experiences they have, may see me differently, and so I feel like I have to adapt to them almost. So that's kind of where the code switching comes into.
Right, so I code switch with every time I speak to someone, just because of simple fact. A lot of people aren't, too familiar with just the political process or even just programs in general, right? So I kind of read people's faces, and I know that when people they're like, what is this dude talking about? So I would just do it that way. And the reason why I code switch with my peers is because, right, they don't care about a lot of things. But if you talk about jobs, you talk about opportunities, things like that. So you just kind of put it into where what's the key principles you want this person to know, right? So when I talk about the Innovation Center, KC Hire, hey, KC Hire, they'd be like, this is a city job. I mean, all the jobs are located in Kansas City. They're probably serious or somewhat of an importance of a job. So I just kind of let them know, like, hey, I just try to put in the key facts so whenever I'm explaining something.
Well, when I talk to my parents, I want them to know that I'm really adulting. So I don't want it to be, I just have a job. I want it to sound like I'm planning for my future and kind of doing things working towards that goal of like having a good career, as opposed to when I talk to my friends and I just sort of like more or less just like tell it like it is. And I'm like, yeah, I work with the nonprofit. They put me with City Hall so that I can keep doing my internship. I mean, as a Black person, I code switch constantly. And I don't really keep track because it's just all the time. But I know I do code switch generationally within my race. That's more like based on cultural norms. I guess I code switch between friend groups based on like how good of friends they are. I honestly don't really talk to males that much, so I really can't tell if I code switch between genders, but I guess I code switch between when I'm talking to my trans friends versus my cis friends. But that's really all I can. And then, of course, like at work versus when I'm not at work.
Code switching around certain type of people to just be more acceptable and to like look more professional and articulate. Whereas in other settings, like with friends or people younger, I might use more slang or try to be funny in conversation.
Yeah. My speech changes when I'm talking to adults rather than my friends or my family, because my friends and family will understand what I'm trying to articulate. I feel like adults or anyone different than me wouldn't try to understand. So I feel like I have to kind of switch up. Age and work environment is definitely a big impact as well. Like, I understand if I'm trying to be as close to a person or trying to be like an acquaintance as as a future friend, it definitely will change. Like, I'll be more comfortable being more myself. But when I go into a work environment and try to act professional, in a sense, I'd have to censor the ways that I speak or stand or that.
The jargon changes depending on who I'm talking to. If they're like familiar with like what I do, then I can like bring up words that we bring up in like work or whatever. But if they're not familiar with it at all and they do something completely different, then I might have to be a little bit broader with my vocabulary. And then I think like depending on who that person is, I might like avoid certain topics and certain vocabulary because it might offend them. I
guess first thing kind of comes to mind is that people over 40 don't understand our passions, or they try to like, not minimize it, but gear it towards a sense of like practicality. Like, oh, this is the only job profession that will drive you in the future and keep you stable. And I guess in a way it kind of comes from a space of stability and ensuring stability in your lives, but still it's our lives and we do have passions that we want to pursue. And I think that conversations kind of needs to be had, it's being like more open-minded of other pursuits.
Definitely, like just being more open-minded is probably like the biggest one. I feel like it just seems like to us that like the older generations are more closed-minded, or maybe like, I don't know if there's like new perspectives that have been brought about like now that they're not like aware of or used to. But it just seems like nowadays like you have to take a bigger risk if you want to move further ahead in life rather than trying to go for like stability. And I think like a lot of younger people kind of see that, and so they want to like take that risk and pursue their passions.
I'm always passionate about having a voice, right? Ever since high school or even before then, I always, even if you didn't have an opinion, you should have that right to at least express it. I love to engage. I feel like if programs or things that are already set up and in effect in today's time were a little bit more engaging, then maybe we wouldn't have so many problems that we have.
I'm really passionate about political change mostly. I'm a public policy major. I've been working with City Hall since January. So for me, it's really about working with policy to make the government really work for the people as it should. My policy areas are, I don't really have one specific policy area that I focus on necessarily, but of course there's tons of issues within that area. Homelessness, accessibility to the public sector, things like libraries, transportation, things like that, criminal justice reform, and of course outreach programs within the city as well. So
I feel like skill gap is more of like a mindset rather than like a technical limitation. I feel like certain people are just like, whether it was the way they were raised or the school that they went to, or the people that they surround themselves with, I think it's a mindset, and you can pretty much accomplish anything that you want to if you just have the right mindset and build the connections to get to that point in life.
Okay.
I think the first thing that comes to mind to me is like access to different resources, and that to me kind of goes into education, because there are a lot of like disparities within the education system depending on where you grew up, where you go to school, and sometimes you can't choose what you get. So like there needs to be more exposure to certain students or certain people, and requires of those resources in order to achieve those passions or like pursue those. So to me, it's kind of can be internalized as well as externalized depending on what you're exposed to and who's in charge of like giving those resources out.
I've never really heard the term, but based off context, basically, when you don't have necessarily some of the skills to operate in like a business or professional capacity, like you don't know how to like write a resume or interview skill, like having interview skills, public speaking, things like that.